Hey guys, happy Wonderland Wednesday! You're tuned into Allisyn's Wonderland, and I am your host, your fearless host, Alicyn. I'm really excited about the show tonight. Thank you guys to everybody that's tuning in live. Haley! Hey guys, hey Chris, it's good to see you. Thanks for tuning in live, you guys. It really just makes the show so much more fun when you can be here live. Yes! Ryan is here, you guys. Ryan Crego is our guest today, and it's very exciting. I have been looking forward to this for so long. Ryan Crego is the creator of Arlo, the Alligator Boy, a fairly new animated musical on Netflix. And man, this show is so magic. It's if you haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend it. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce Ryan and we can talk about it with him. So, hi guys. Thanks for everybody who's tuning in live. Yay. Yay. Let's invite Ryan, okay? Okay. Welcome to Allisyn's Wonderland, Ryan. How are you today? Hi.
Hello. Hi, how's it going?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's going. It's going well.
Your
It's
hair's
going
getting
well.
long. It looks nice.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's the movie's out and now just everything kind of slows down. So the last couple weeks it's been cool. It's been, strange and now you anticipate something happening coming out and then all of a sudden it's here. And now I'm like, okay, now what do I
Like
do?
slightly chill or
Yeah,
yeah.
it's good. It's good. It's hard. I don't relax easily, so I always want to be like working and doing. I'm just that kind of person. So I go up and down. I'm like, some
Yeah.
days I'm like, I need to be like cranking, and then some days I'm like, this is really nice. I've got nothing to do. So,
Yeah.
and a little bit of mix of both. But yeah, all good, all good.
Well, so Arlo the Alligator Boy, which is the animated musical on Netflix, but you also have a series coming out as well, I
Yeah.
Heart Arlo. So where are you at in production with that?
We, uh, I let the cat out of the bag yesterday that we did our final mix yesterday, so that's basically done. I mean, we don't have, I'll say, we don't have a release date yet, so I can't say when that is.
Yeah.
Not only because I don't know. I mean, I like have an idea, but like I don't actually know.
He's
Um,
withholding information, guys.
already, it's been 2 minutes and I'm already not telling the truth. No, but for reals, I think we have a target area, but like
Yeah.
but just for it gets dubbed in 36 languages, so
Wow.
we're like we did our mix on the final mix and then it's gonna be a while. So but yeah, we're like in the can on that thing. So yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
it's
exciting.
cool.
How many episodes is the first season?
It's always complicated when I say this, but it's 18 elevens and a 22-minute finale. So it's basically like a 20 episode order of 11 minutes, and then we didn't just smash the last two together. I've done a lot of board driven. It's board driven, which
Mhm.
for a lot of people who are watching, if you don't know, it's we allow our board artists to write and to come up with gags, and we give them outlines instead of scripts. So they're driving the stories on each episode, and it's not unlike SpongeBob or Adventure Time or a lot of the great, really fun, quirky, funny shows. So it's board driven. So, but for the last one, we scripted because we thought like I've done it a few times where we've tried to like cram board driven into a longer format, and then I was like, this time we're gonna script it. Just make it. We'll script it, and then we'll get crazy with it after. So, but yeah. So it's got a 22-minute finale. The finale is a musical. It's got four full songs in it, and it's really cool.
So is the whole series musical? Are there songs in each episode?
Yeah, throughout. Not every single episode. I think I would say we wrote probably 16-ish songs for like whatever the 20 episodes or 19 episodes. So like close. It's close. There's a couple that don't have songs. Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, let's start. I'm curious because I want to start at the very beginning. Just how I mean, you've worked as a storyboard artist, writer,
Hmm.
director, songwriter,
Hmm.
musician. You've worked in so many, you've had your hands in pretty much every pot of the animation world. And I'm just wondering, how did you get your start? You're from Northern California, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm from the Bay Area, and I grew up in Silicon Valley, so very tech industry area, but not like when I
Huh.
was a kid, it was like the beginning of tech, you know what I mean? It was a strange, cool. I didn't realize at the time like what a weird place it would be to grow up because you're just like, anytime you're a kid, you don't have any point of reference for your life. So you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's totally normal. Like everyone's parents work at computer companies and like, yeah, Apple computers is a thing. And like, but like then going back in history, it's like, no, Apple computers like started in a garage a couple blocks from my house. And like, it's just the whole thing. Like, then you go like that changed the world in so many ways. And all that was happening out of this place where like at the time that I was born,
Yeah.
very like orchards were getting taken down and tech companies were being built up. And so it felt normal at the time. Now in retrospect, I'm like, what a trip. But it was
Yeah.
really boring. I thought it was really boring. I was always doing art. I was always playing music. I was playing in bands. I was like, we
Uh-huh.
just felt like it's very suburban. And there was nothing to do and no culture, it felt like at the time. Like San Francisco was, maybe 40 minutes away, but when you're young, you don't really have access to the city that way. Um, so I always felt like it was a real dead zone for art and culture. And San Jose was like, I always picture San Jose because it was like the closest big hub of a city, but it was always to me like Kenny G, It was just like soft, yeah,
San
yeah.
Jose.
It's soft jazz all day. So you just like that was where I felt like I grew up. So I was always like trying to get out like in my own mind and try to push out into like weird places with friends. I grew up with a lot of artists. We're
What
always
kind of
pushing each
bands were
other.
you in?
The first band I was in was called Pedestrians of Death and Destruction.
So
So
smooth jazz?
yeah, yeah. They were cool. The good guys. Harder sounding than they were. Like we were all really nice kids. But uh, yeah. And then I played with bands that were like I got into like ska and like funk and all kinds of stuff. As I got older, more stuff that was like this, the bands that got more serious as I was getting out of college and stuff were more along the lines of like Wilco-ish, like alt country and folk and stuff. So I've been all over the gamut with music, and I had kind of put it down. Like I just over the last 10 years hadn't really played a lot of music. I haven't been playing in bands and stuff. Really focused on my animation career.
Yeah.
And Alex Garangus, who I saw on this thing. Hey, Alex, if you're still there. Really like as we started working on Arlo, he was a big inspiration for me and like getting me kind of back in the saddle, getting me back into writing music. I didn't plan on writing the music for this. I planned on I felt like I had so many hats to wear already because
Yeah.
we were a small production, a kind of, little engine that could kind of production. So I felt like already I was in the process of writing it and directing it and producing it. And then Alex was like, you have to write the songs too. And it was like, okay. So we did. It worked. I mean, I was very happy. It really ignited something in me that I hadn't, felt in a long time. So that was really, cool.
It's crazy you say that because I feel that in the movie. I very much feel that it's just so special in terms of the way you brought so much heart to the story, but also the music is feels like an extension of that. And this story and it's definitely been on repeat here at our house.
Cool.
And been talking to a lot of people, not just Debbie, but a lot of people in his community that just love the project. So
Hmm.
I think, staying true to that voice definitely struck a chord for so much of your audience. Uh,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
amazing.
you gotta find that. And I'm still finding myself every time I get into a project. I think I felt very comfortable so back to the career,
Yeah.
I was a board artist early on in my career at DreamWorks, doing features, and I found a home with the Shrek group. And I was really like, I mean, I was kind of like a class clown. There were a lot of class clowns. Everyone was a class clown on Shrek. But I felt like that's where I kind of fit in the most. I found my voice as like, okay, I can make fun of things. I can like push comedy. I'm not an extremely like, diligent draftsman artist. I'm much more of a cartoonist, and it felt like that was a place where I could do that. And then I worked on a lot of features, and it was really cool. But I always felt like I came from a very like comedy, like I was the punch up comedy person, not really like a big story or emotional story person, and not. But even though I felt those feelings, that was not my sort of place in as a board artist, because board artists are kind of cast in certain ways, and not because I just didn't have the skills like to really dial in the real acting. Even though you could feel that, it's like to draw it into, or to draw action scenes, like the understanding of perspective and all of the things you need, camera, all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
things that have kind of come later. So I feel like that's where sort of my home base was for a long time was just comedy. And now getting into Arlo, it's like making a movie. You can't just, like you could just do like crazy, ridiculous comedy, but like then I think you're cheating the audience from having emotional, beautiful emotional moments too. So that's been kind of a new thing for me, is like trying to just, like this movie was a big discovery process, of like what's my voice? I knew what my voice was as a board artist. Now what's my voice as like a truly like original storyteller? And so that's been an interesting piece of the puzzle to fit together.
Yeah, and the comedy's definitely woven in there to keep,
Yeah.
it's a great mix of family comedy, everybody's
Thanks.
laughing on the couch. It's not just the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I had an executive, one of the executives who brought me into Netflix and who is very familiar with me and my work. And we got into our first screening, and it was just the first act. So if like basically up till Arlo leaves the swamp.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, I should probably like talk to I was like, so just so you know, like the first act isn't really funny. Like there's not a lot of jokes. Like I know you guys are expecting it to be really funny, but like you probably brought, the thought like, hey, this is a comedy. And like I'm like, it'll be funny, but in my mind we had to like really tame down the first act, even though there's like the crazy Edmay song and there's some moments I was like, but it couldn't be like wall to wall, because if you're just wall to wall and then all of a sudden you meet for Alicia and then you meet all these other great, I was like,
Yeah.
our audience is gonna, their heads are gonna fall off by midway through the movie and not finish it. So that was a funny thing where I just all of a sudden realized I was about to screen something to people who had expectations that were not like, but it all worked out. I mean, they loved it. I think maybe it was just in my own head. I felt like I needed to say it, but yeah.
You're like, okay, that the heart balance is heavy on the heart,
Yeah.
but it will get,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love
And
that first act. I love Edmay and Arlo. I think that that movie, not to say the movie was, I love the movie, but like the movie of just Edmay and Arlo in the swamp, like with nice, peaceful, sweet, all those backgrounds are so
yeah,
beautiful. Like that would be it's like I could live there for
the
60 minutes
prequel.
or, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny because I think the very first time I watched the movie, my son was watching it, and I came in halfway through and then watched the first third at the like later, and I was
Cool.
like, oh, just so touched by that location was so rich and detailed.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Did the
was really
location
beautiful.
did the locations in the film have a special meaning to you?
Um, New York for sure. I unfortunately had like kind of planned to visit a lot of these places and to do that like during the process, and COVID hit and that was like, totally derailed. But the idea of walking into a big city and seeing New York the way that he sees it is very much I'm very, I love that city. I'm very passionate about it. I think it's just the big cities I love. And again, it kind of probably goes back to when I was a kid and feeling like I'm just in the middle of, even though I was in, now you're like, oh, there was so much happening. But even though there was stuff happening, it just felt like I was so like there was nothing happening. And when you get to a big city, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I feel that way about New York. There's so much to experience and to discover every time I go. I feel like you can go there a billion times and never see everything. So I love that.
Mm.
North Carolina, I visited when I was a kid and tried to capture some of that and kind of like had mapped out the journey. So like when I was writing with Clay Seneschal, who was my scripting partner on the screenplay, I had mapped out the journey, and so I was like, this is where he's going. I kind of like written the outline and the pitch, and we'll probably talk about it, but it's a story that's been around for like 11 years, and so I had already like mapped out the journey. And then we were kind of writing based on like trying to find like real locations, real like the Willow Button city is actually based in, I'm gonna totally forget the name. I'll have to think of it. Like just outside of New Orleans, there was like a small town that I found that was like so cute, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. It kind of feels like trapped in time. It's like a couple antique stores, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I tried to find like real reference for those things. Yeah,
Oh, yes, when they with the car and everything, that
yeah,
scene after the
yeah, yeah.
oh,
Bradley Aloysius and Sandra June.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
And so did you know, as you were like playing in bands and coming out of, you went to USC, right?
No, UC Santa Barbara.
UC Santa Barbara.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Hmm.
then did you know you wanted to get in animation when you started
Yeah.
college?
No, not when I started. So when I was really young, I always said I was like, if you ask me, and I've got like somewhere I found when I was unpacking my house because we moved recently, like when I was like in elementary school, like my dream job was to be an animator at Disney. Like that was like if you said, oh, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" I'm going to be an animator at Disney. That was just like and I was always one of those kids who just thought like, yeah, that's good, that will happen. So if I believe that it will happen, there was nothing, I didn't feel like, you know, I just felt like you always like I was just focused, like that would work. Then
Yeah.
I got older and I thought I was going to get into. I still wanted to make movies, but I was doing like video production and stuff in high school, and I really kind of thought like maybe I would be doing like action movies, like cool stuff, dudes and guns and just like gratuitous whatever, like just crazy like war. We used to shoot like war movies in like a creek behind our, and so that was probably like when I got out of when I got out of high school going into the film program at Santa Barbara, I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think I'll probably end up doing like action movies, like cool shit. Sorry,
Yeah.
for kids who might be watching. But then I took an animation class in my first year, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I love. Like, stop being an idiot. Just realize that like. And then I came back full. It was like all this, love, luckily the professor who was like in charge of all the production at UC Santa Barbara was an animation. He was like in the first class of animation from USC, so he knew like just a lot. He was like he had gone to school with like I don't know if John Lasseter went to USC, but he knew all those guys. Like he was kind of in the contemporary of like that era of animators and stuff. So he was an awesome resource, and we started I took every animation course I could take, and then we did independent studies. And he got me an office, and I made films. I made stop motion movies. I did hand drawn. So I had kind of created my own. By the time I got to my sophomore year, I had like exhausted all of the animation courses because there were like three at UC
So it
Santa
wasn't a
Barbara.
major, it was just like
No,
you were
yeah,
just building your own thing.
yeah,
Wow.
and so I graduated with a film studies degree, and all of my extracurricular, all my what do they call them? Electives or
Oh,
whatever, elective classes like were basically independent studies where I had an old like 1970s or 1960s Bolex camera rigged with a animation motor, and um, we built a dolly off of a Xerox machine that we cranked with a bicycle crank. Like,
for the
like
kids that don't know what a Xerox machine
yeah,
is.
I know. We're getting old. But so we did it that way, and it was cool. And like one of my buddies who I made movies with in school, he was a little bit older. He's now kind of running the all the marketing animation for Pixar. He was an animator at Pixar for a long time, and he just kind of was a big inspiration for me, and getting like I was like, whoa, he did it. Like he was maybe a year or two older than me, and he was like, yeah, I'm getting a job at this new place called Pixar. Oh, that sounds neat. What do they do? So then he's got this like sweet gig where he's doing like the Luca posters and all that stuff, all those
Oh,
like cool. He does like all the like key frame animation poses. He's he's a rad dude.
wow.
Yeah, so it was a very small program. It was like me and him. Yeah,
Wow, I'd love to pick his brain. That's so
yeah.
interesting. And so, do you think you got more opportunity to try different things since it was a smaller program?
Yeah, and I think it really gave me my own sort of. I was the film studies program. The studies of it all is basically you're analyzing film, and you're analyzing like you're studying like Eisenstein and like all these like crazy like film theorists and stuff, and you're
Mhm.
watching like most of it. They call we always joke because they call classic Hollywood cinema like it's a bad thing. It's like a bad word. We call it CHC, and they'd be like CHC does this, but like independent art films, And I was like, but how are we going to make money?
Yeah.
um, so and we always like I was like, this is crazy, but it was good because it just opened up my mind into all this like the theory of like why you would do something and all the choices you make when you're making a movie, and how important that is. I would love to sit in on those classes again because they're so mind expanding. But when I got out of school, then you've got all these people who went to Cal Arts because I was like, oh, I want to get into animation. Like, do I leave UC school and go to Cal Arts? Like, what do I do now? And I
Yeah.
just decided to stay, finish out my degree, and then I was going to go snowboard for a year, and then I was going to either go back to school or like, or get into, the business or do something. I don't know. So I was like, so I
Taking a
left.
gap year before it's even
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I went. Well, I love the mountains, and I was like, so I'm just going to do that, and then I'll figure it out. And so slowly worked my way back to LA, and then I had applied at like every animation studio, and of course nothing, crickets. And I got into like doing really random motion graphics work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was interesting. It was when I don't want to get too deep into it, but it was when poker shows were really big, when poker was still legal online, and like people were spending big money, and they were doing all these like I don't know if you remember, like for a while it was like it didn't matter what channel you turned on, it was like a poker tournament. So I
Yeah.
was doing that. I was doing all the card graphics when they slide in and all the percentages and all that stuff. Like somewhere that was me in a room with
Wow.
a Photoshop and keyframing all that junk. And then I got a call one day, and it was like, "Hey, this is DreamWorks. Do you want to come in for, or like, is it, can we it set up a phone interview?" That's what it was, a phone interview. And I was like, "Yeah, oh my God." And I just started like crying. I was like, call my grandma, I was like, "Grandma."
Had you applied or it was just out of the
I
blue?
applied, but it was a year. It was like a full year. And they were like, "Yeah, we kept your application around, and we just, we need
Wow.
some production assistance." I was like, "This is crazy." So I interviewed for over a month. I had kind of given up on getting the job. And then what I found out later was that two different shows wanted me, and it just, they were trying to work it all out. And it turned out I ended up with the Shrek group, and the rest is kind of history because all the really cool board artists, people like, Walt Doran, who directed the Trolls movies, and Peter Ramsey and Bob Persichetti, who directed Spider Verse, and like all these superhero, artists were there. Dave Smith, like all these crazy people, they were just all there, and I had access to all of them. I was mostly shooting their storyboards and sending them to the editor, but I got to see every, frame of the movie in storyboard form, and then just started to process and learn how to do it. And that's where I kind of, how I came out into boarding. So yeah. So, but I thought it gave me a good perspective because most people that did go to Cal Arts, like, they're so well trained. They have so much, like, I still wish I had the training. I still wish I could, in theory, you could like take a break for a couple of years and go to those classes and get that knowledge. That would still be so useful to me. But at the same time, I felt like I was also coming from such a different place that maybe that worked to my advantage because, I was just a wild card kind of person to
Yeah.
have on a crew. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. If everybody's cut from the same cloth and then you come in with
Yeah.
a different piece of fabric, it's
Yeah. It's the guy
giving.
who doesn't know anything.
But he's
Uh,
charming.
but yeah, exactly. I can BS it all day.
Yeah, so Arlo the Alligator Boy, it's just such a beautifully crafted movie, and the music is so catchy. Did you always know you wanted to write a musical?
Yeah. Yeah. It was always a musical. And I think, I had worked in some, shows that had music, like had musical moments, but I had never made a musical, and so that was a really big educational process for me, and like learning, trying to figure out, like, and I still don't think I've learned it. I just think that um, I and I was joking. If you've watched any interview, I probably say it every time, but like I Googled like how do you make a musical because I was like, oh God, they're gonna make it. We're gonna make a musical. What do you do? Like what is that? What are the things? And I'm a big fan of like research, anyways. Like I think it's very important to see what people say. You don't have to follow it. Just what's out there, find it out. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And we definitely like did not follow a traditional path for like what a musical would be, because I think if you look at like the Disney musicals, there's probably like 4 or 5 songs, like true songs. If you look at Broadway, it's like wall to wall for
Hmm.
them. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Yeah.
entirely, but like, so we're somewhere in there in between. I think we've got like 24 minutes of music of songs within a 90-minute movie. So it's a fair amount, but it definitely became um, the thing that was driving the movie forward were those songs. Because as Alex and I started to write, we were writing the songs at the same time we were writing the script, and we had about four songs. We I think we turned in like six songs before we got greenlit, but I think we had like four songs, like Beyond These Walls, More, an early version of Wash the Hurt Away, which changed pretty dramatically, and there was one more that stuck around, and I can't remember, but we had kind of like, a grasp on a handful of songs that we knew were like Beyond These Walls was the one that was like, okay, this is where we go. Like this is the movie.
That's the cat.
Um, yeah, it was. We had written a number of songs, and then when we kind of uncovered that one, that was where we went like, oh, okay, now we've got something that to like set the bar is up here. Like this is where the bar is. So now every song has to like we're reaching for this, try to make it as good as Beyond These Walls because that song is really good. And so that really drove the movie. And then we also in our first screening, which was like a very, we had crammed to get all the boards together and threw it all together with like too many editors and like just like we have to get a screening together so we can see what we're making and then we'll all understand it and then we can get back to work in a more clear way, which I
Okay.
think is really healthy. I think it's really good. Like I think a lot of people are afraid to put a screening up and because they're afraid of what executives are going to say or think or whatever. Netflix
Yeah.
has been very like they're so open and encouraging. I didn't feel any pressure from the executives. I didn't feel like we were going to have like a bad screening. I just thought we needed to have a screening so we could put it up and we could talk about it. And the songs were what really carried that first screening. It was like, oh, this is where we go. Like this is so. Then we wrote a lot more songs, and then Better Life came into play, and we did that whole collage moment before Wash the Hurt Away, and then Something's Missing was a very late addition. So we just really started like leaning on the music to tell the story as much as we could.
Yeah. It really, it makes it so magical how it all comes together. It's so interesting to hear the behind the scenes of all of it. And, you're a singer as well. Were you also singing in those bands in high school or?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So you can
mostly. I
sing
mean,
with
not
no violin.
not. Let's see. No, I guess I was. I was almost. Yeah, I was mostly a singer, and then later I was more of a guitar player that did backups in some bands, and then I had other bands I was like lead singer in. But and I'm not a great singer, and I know it, but but I like it. But I like the feeling of it, And I think you
Yeah.
can, I like to. I think there's an artistic way to deliver vocals without it having to be like because when I have. Uh, I don't know. You work with people like Michael J. Woodard, and you're like, this is a singer, this is a singer.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I've always loved the feeling of putting, your heart and your energy into a song and like and delivering it because I think it goes into like um a very like this will probably sound weird, but like not spiritual, maybe
Spiritual.
spiritual. Just
Yeah.
you get in like a weird, there's like a weird plane of the world of the universe that you can get into when
Yes.
you're playing music that you can't access. And I think, and I really love that feeling. And I think I feel it the most when I'm playing guitar and singing at the same time because then I cannot control anything else other than, there's just too many things happening. And then you're just in a weird space in your head, which is
Yeah,
really neat.
100%. I mean, when you were struggling for the word spiritual, that's like what
Yeah.
popped into my mind. And like Elizabeth Gilbert's idea behind Big Magic, that there's like this collective consciousness of ideas, and you just want to be the first to pluck it out, or
Yeah.
like, um, Pixar's movie this year where they go into the zone and
So good. Yeah,
so
so good. That movie really, I did not see that movie until recently, and it's not because I didn't want to. I just like I thought I was like I have a young daughter, and we watch a lot of stuff together. I just to find time to
yeah,
watch movies and all that, And now that I've got time, now that the movie's done, I've sat
yeah,
down and watched it, and I was like, oh my God, that movie's so like it really touched me. I was like, holy crap, that's something like that's so special. And then it really inspired me. I was like oh my gosh, I need to get it together. Like this is insane, And like you said, there's just it just gets you like from an artistic level, it gets you from a human level. I think
yeah.
if you can tap into that, So, yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, that stuff
100%.
in Soul, I was like, totally, I get it.
I want to give everybody some love that's on the stream. Because we're repurposing the video as an audio podcast, I'm not as able to address each comment as it comes in, but I want you to know that, guys, that I am definitely hearing. And thanks, Debbie, and thanks, Jeffrey, and everybody
What's
that's
up,
tuning in
Debbie?
live. Debbie, it's so good to see you. A lot of people saying that they love the soundtrack. Oh, wow. Hendong,
Hen
Hendog.
Dog HD, thank you.
HD watches in Japanese. So thank you guys for tuning in. We do have a little button at the bottom with a question mark. If you have questions for Ryan, we'll save a couple minutes at the very end of the interview for some questions. So you can go ahead and type them in there. But we were talking about the inspiration with Soul, which gave me all the feels. But Arlo, I mean, I think for a lot of us, we're just like low key obsessed with this movie. I mean,
Thank you.
my son and I, we sing the songs. He's 5, and we are always singing the songs. And I'm working on a cover, like like
Nice.
just like a
Yeah,
total fan, because it just really moves and inspires me. And I find that the more excited I get about stuff, the more I get out of a project and watching it and taking it in. So it's been really cool to watch.
thank you.
Um, I know I saw a little bit of I cut your interview with Debbie where you were saying that Arlo was like 11 years in the making.
Yeah,
And so I was curious, did it start with just that little guy, or was it the story? What was the
yeah,
inspiration?
yeah, yeah. It was really from sketches, like from one-off sketches I started doing. Just I was like, I'm one of those people that I work late at night. I don't know if there's any board artists on here. I saw Tristan on here, but like everyone's got their sort of methods. And like for me, when it's harder now. I don't do it so much now. I have to train myself to work during the day because
Yeah.
kids and all that stuff, and also being managing other people. But
Yeah.
back when I could, I was very much like a late night. Like I would stay up all night and draw and like get into a groove and like put music on, put headphones on, and just be like, cranking. And then I would kind of find myself like stepping out just to do other sketches and whatever, drawing constantly.
Hmm.
And this Alligator Boy kind of came out of that. And actually, I mentioned Walt Dorn, who directed Trolls, was like early on. I was like, hey, what do you think about like this guy is, So we started. He even did some early drawings too, and like we would talk about it, and so a lot of the early kind of conceptual stuff came out of the idea of like the circus sideshow. That's like the Alligator Boy, and then Birdie, who's the like whatever's 13 feet tall, like kind of extreme versions of these characters. Like what if the posters came to life was kind of like the initial concept. That you see those like crazy posters, the Pumpkin Boy or whatever with the pumpkin head, and that's so a
Uh-huh.
lot of that stuff. And I don't talk about it too much because like I think in the end it was the more research I did and the more like in touch I got with like the idea of circus sideshows, the more I felt like it was not a positive space. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And like yet Arlo is a very positive character, and so like it just became like it stopped being like that wasn't what the story was about, and then trying to tell a story that like where you're kind of defending something that is not a good, like all these things kind of it just became like it became very complex for me, and I wanted to acknowledge it, and the more I tried to acknowledge it, the more difficult the storytelling became and all of that. So I was like, look, it thematically will carry all of the things that story has and still be about the same, like you can see like with Seaside by the Seashore kind of having a Coney Island-esque feeling, but not be exactly that, just because I don't want to, I even went to like Coney Island and like did research. I was there like that with like the Coney Island nonprofit like group, and I think they what they do is cool,
Mhm.
but still, there's a history that's not happening right now that was happening, and so I don't want to be in a, I don't want to deliver negativity to people. I want to deliver positive vibes.
Yeah.
So, anyways, all of that's kind of the initial idea. So, like, I've talked about it a little bit how like that was an early version when I was like 20 something, and then however many years later, 7 maybe or 8 years later, I'm looking for a project to develop, and my wife was the one who was like, "You really should bring Arlo like out. That's such a good
Yeah.
project, and I really love that, And so that's when I took a different lens to the project and tried to figure out like, is there still a way to tell the story? Is there a way to do it in like a really, sweet and positive way? Because it was always about, this character was always like really ultra positive in the boards and or in the drawings that I had done, and I was like, I love that. Like he felt vulnerable. You want to like him, but he's got all these sharp teeth. So like if he walks into, you know what I mean? Like he walks into a place and he's like, but he's not a bad. It's like Edward Scissorhands kind of feeling,
Mhm.
where you're so clearly like, oh, that's, you know, everyone's gonna be a little bit like, please don't touch me, don't bite me, um, but so yeah, just anyway. So my wife really helped me kind of like get back on the Arlo train and like dust it off and then take a new swing at it and a new approach. And when I did, I found that I really found a lot of love for the characters and for the project, and was able to bring it to Netflix and pitch a series and a movie at the same time, and they were really excited about that, which was crazy. And so I felt like I just, you know, uh, I don't know. It's like I felt like I just like I was like, oh my God, are they really doing this? And like if they are, like I need to run. Like I need to grab this thing like and just run and not let anyone stop
Oh,
me until, you know what I mean?
run with the
I'm like,
ball.
I'm just gonna yeah, run with the ball. Like I'm gonna get there, I'm just gonna finish it and like don't, like get as far as I can before someone realizes I like they made a huge mistake and they hired the wrong person. And this like shouldn't happen. So I was
I wasn't sure if you meant run in the other
yeah,
direction.
no, no.
Ah!
No, run with it. Like, as I was like, oh my God, really? Okay. I need to do this now. So I feel like one of those, just in life, when you're given an opportunity, you have to take advantage of it and to the full extent you can. And, I gave everything that I could to this movie within the confines of my own, like, personal, abilities. And I put my family is my priority always. But
Yeah.
then beyond that, like, everything that I could give to this movie when I can. And even then, I mean, I involved my daughter in it. She's in the movie and she was always like watching. She was in the studio with me and Alex when we were recording Michael. Um, and my wife was always around and stuff. So we're not, it's not like I don't just turn off the Arlo and go do that in a corner somewhere. Like we're very much a family operation. But yeah,
That's something
yeah,
I was going to ask you because I know, working in animation, then you're around children, you're doing content for children, but then when you become a parent, I
yeah,
think everything just shifts. And you, for me at least, I was so much more able to get into the mindset of what entertains kids and the joy and the freedom in that play. Um,
yeah.
So, at your daughter's pretty young, right? 3 or 4
Yeah,
years?
she's like 3.5. She's
Okay.
like 3.5. So she was actually born the day that I got the go ahead from Netflix that they were going to develop it. So they were like, okay, the deal's happening. Like they had told me they were going to, like, but it was like,
Yeah.
okay, we actually have a like deal in hand. And I remember very clearly. I have a very lovely lawyer. I don't use like agents or anything. I'm not like, I don't know. I'm not that Hollywood, but I do have a wonderful lawyer who's like a grandma. And she's been in the industry
Aw.
forever. And she's always like telling me like, Ryan, she was Steve Hillenberg's lawyer. So I have absolute love for her. Like anyways, great. And she goes, you need to go quit your job. And I was like, what? And she's like, you need to do it today. And I was like, but my wife is in labor. And so I was with my wife and she was like, it's okay. We hadn't gone to the hospital yet. She was like, it's okay. So I dropped her off at the Galleria in Glendale and she went and bought baby clothes while I was in an executive's office saying like, well, I got a movie at Netflix and I'm gonna have to put in my notice. And it was like the craziest day of my life. I'll never forget it. So I always marked
Wait, so your
Arlo.
wife was like physically in labor,
Yeah,
like
yeah. She's like
early
buying. Yeah,
stages?
yeah. She was like in Zara at the Galleria buying baby clothes. Hopefully she's not watching right now because she'll be like, when I come downstairs, she'll be like, "Why are you telling that story?" Um, Buying baby
That's
clothes
amazing.
and having contractions while I'm in an office like a couple blocks away, quitting my job. Uh, And then
Wow.
but Arlo is exactly as old. Like at least the production at Netflix is exactly as old as my daughter. So
Wow.
yeah,
That is amazing.
to the day, it's exactly that old. It's
What
so
the
funny.
universe was just like, you're expanding in so many ways.
Yeah,
Your life is
I know.
expanding.
It was a crazy like week, I guess. And then yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
They always say babies bring bread in more ways
Yeah,
than one, I guess.
yeah, we got another one on the way. So I feel like it's
Oh,
that's September. So I should have a deal coming for a new project in September. I want to do it
okay.
like you cannot tell me yes until whenever the day is September or whatever that day is.
I'm a
Uh,
September baby, so that's a
all right
good.
on.
What's the
I
due
know.
date?
Right now it's the 16th, I think. I think
That's
we're
my
16th.
sister's birthday.
Yeah, my dad's the 10th, and he's a very cool dude. He's a very
Yeah.
mellow. I'm hoping for, my daughter is very chill, but when you get the chill one, you're like, uh-oh, there's got to be a crazy one somewhere.
Yeah.
It's gonna be,
I can't think about what a chill child is like because my child is not chill's not a word.
yeah. I mean, I use chill
It's a
with like within the confines of just like other
fatherhood.
other kids that I've seen, where I'm like, whoa, we're
Oh my
good.
God.
Yeah.
But 3.5, wait, so that's like, it only took you guys 3 years to make this entire
Yeah.
movie?
Yeah, we went light speed. It's very much I look at it as like a an independent movie, even though Netflix is obviously a huge company. It's very much like an indie movie. We operated at a TV pace rather than a feature pace.
Hmm.
We got a little bit of leeway. I pushed, for as much as I could, but also to make sure that I was being responsible, because I want to keep working in the industry, and I feel like, you don't want to just blow a budget on your first movie and be like, oh, like, sorry, I didn't know what we were doing. Like I felt
But it
like I
was
knew,
cool, right?
yeah, right. I hope it was good.
You liked it.
So we really went at a I would say, and hopefully all the people that worked on it would feel the same. um, we made decisions, we stuck to them. We didn't like, I didn't want to burn out my artists. I wasn't trying to do like a feature's worth of work, like, or at least a feature schedule's worth of work in the time of the schedule that we had. So I made that my goal was like, I'm going to make decisions, and I'm going to like take responsibility for those decisions and accountability for those decisions, and like make the best movie we can make in that time frame without like ruining people's lives, because I didn't want people to work, I didn't want people there overnight. I didn't want people like, it happens. I've worked in the industry a lot where you get onto projects and the schedules never meet the expectations of what the studio has for them or like whatever. So I always feel like that, is can be curbed from a management, from an executive producer standpoint, if you know what you're doing. And some, we had a very, very happy group of people working on the crew, very positive. A lot of Arlos on the crew, and so yeah, so we just cranked. I mean, we cranked out the movie really quickly, and then we made adjustments one time, and then a lot of people rolled off onto the series, and I kept like maybe 3 artists on board for a couple more months, and myself boarding at times, and just finishing it up and trying to make the best movie we could with the time we had. So,
And now
you
you get
know,
to take a vacation.
yeah, yeah, I'm taking a vacation next week. I'll be gone. But
Oh,
I think that I think I wouldn't do it differently. I think, like we could have done more with, you can always do more with more time and more
yeah.
resources, but like I think that we captured the spirit of what this was. And I had been thinking about it for a long time. Obviously, had been, thinking about it for 11 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how much better. I think things kind of like, start to um the ability to make something that much better, like exponentially better after a certain point, like it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, you can stay on a project for another year and maybe get like another 10% better,
Hmm.
And I've seen that on a lot of movies where you'll put up a really great screening, and then you spend another 2 years just kind of tinkering and changing, and maybe what if we do that? Like the movie gets better, but it doesn't get like that much better.
And then by the
So
end, you're like, okay, I'm so sick of this movie.
yeah, and you're like, yeah, and that screening, remember that screening we had like a year ago was so funny or whatever.
That
So
was,
you try to capture that lightning in a bottle a little bit. I think, yeah. So I'm very like, I think in the end we did something really cool, and I think it has, and Titmouse has a lot to do with that too. Like allowing us to come into their studio, or allowing me to come into their studio and making everything there. Because we had Titmouse Animation in Hollywood and Vancouver. All of the artists were actually Titmouse employees. So I came from Netflix, and
Yeah.
I know Chris and Ben Kalina and Antonio and Shannon from working on a previous project, Home. Um, and I called up Chris. I was like, I think of this thing. Like, I want to do 2D. I want to do feature, and I don't know if we can do it. That like, can we do something? Like, how far can we get into feature level? And we got pretty darn far. I mean, we like really like got really. I was so impressed with, like, I did not expect at the end of the day to be, with the amount of time we had, with the amount of resources we had, that studio, like, they pulled out all the stops. Like, they put so much heart into it. Those animators crushed it. Some of them just gave us total gold. I mean, there's so much beautiful acting in this movie, and so I think a lot of people felt very passionately about the story and about the what we were doing. I think everyone who worked on it that I came across was like very much, they got like why it was an important story to tell, and how special it could be if we did it right. And so people put a lot of extra love into it. So yeah, it was cool. It was like a really interesting. I don't think I could ever make another movie, or I don't think I ever will make another movie like this, because I've broken that experience of directing my first movie, and I don't know what, like, you'll change things and do things differently. But also the fact that we just kind of went in not knowing what we were doing on so many levels. Like, can we make a feature at basically, I mean, I don't want to call Titmouse a TV studio, because they're not. They're an animation studio that can do a lot of things, but like, we really had to kind of create a pipeline to make this work. And then how is that gonna, can we do that, and what's that look like, and how do we do it? And it was pretty crazy. So.
And the songs, I mean, the songs are so amazing. How did that process with Alex? So you guys were developing the songs even before pitching?
Yeah, I told Alex around the time, because we worked together on Home Adventures with Tip and O, and I had told him around the time that I was pitching it out about the story, and he was like, "Oh my God, I love that!" And I was like, "Well, good, because you're gonna do it. You should do it." And he was like, "Yeah, I want to do that." So we had already decided, like, before Netflix, and I pitched it to two studios, and but before that, like, I had already kind of decided that Alex would write the music for it, and he just was so passionate about this process, the project, and all that stuff. Um, so we had talked a lot about it before we actually got into doing it. And then when it happened, we started writing the music kind of right away, like right at the time I was writing the outline. So I started breaking off, like, I would go to his studio like 2 days a week, and then I would be writing script like 3 days a week or whatever.
Two
Um,
like eight-hour days, or would you be in there just like,
Yeah, we're like, Alex and I, we drink a lot of coffee. It's weird. We do a lot of our day at the studio is like watching clips of movies and listening to other songs and like taking walks,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden we're like in the middle of something, and then it's just like 4 or 5 hours will pass, and we're like, come out of the studio like, whoa, okay, we have a song.
wow.
Um, we don't force the process, and a lot of times we make stuff that's like fine, good, not great. Like, we're just like, we'll be like, okay, and then we'll come back the next session and be like, yeah, let's listen to that. That's fine. What if we did this with something different? So we have a lot of like a graveyard full of songs right now that you know probably won't do anything,
That
but
is
you
it,
never
right?
know. Sometimes something might feel right. Sometimes we have done it. The Something's Missing actually was one of the first songs we wrote for Arlo, and it was meant to be Beyond These Walls, and then we abandoned it because it wasn't feeling right. And then Alex put it in the score when Arlo and Edme are sitting at the table, and she's telling him about she shows him the bracelet, gives him the bracelet.
Uh,
That if you listen back in the movie, that Something's Missing is playing there, and it's a banjo version of it. So he had kind of broken out that
huh.
the theme from Something's Missing, and we had the initial version had like banjo and slide, and it was much more like kind of rootsy, and then like brush drums and stuff, like so. he had kind of borrowed some instruments from the very, very first version. So then when I got to the end and we were like looking for a song for Arlo and Ansel for that moment, because it felt like the discussion wasn't working, and I was like, yeah, they just need to sing it. Like he sings when he's feeling something really extreme, and that seems like the way to do it. And then maybe we can kind of have a duet, but not a true duet because they're not in sync with each other yet, so they're kind of singing against each other. Um, and I just went back into like all of the songs because I've kept like a track list of like all the discarded things, and just started listening through to see if there were any ideas to borrow from.
Hmm.
And then Something's Missing hit me, and I was like, yeah, and he borrowed that score from that moment when he gets the bracelet, and that kind of feels appropriate. So that was like weirdly like kind of coincidental that when he gets the bracelet and learns that he's got a dad, that it's actually the song that he sings later. It makes sense. Like it makes us seem like we were really smart, but it was more just like in retrospect, I was like, that's a good. And hey, look at that, works too. Um, so then we rewrote that, and
Wow.
yeah, yeah, and Vincent Rodriguez is insanely. He gives me goosebumps on that song. Like when
How
the
how did
first
you find Vincent? Was he always like someone you had in mind, or did it was Lambert because
No, he auditioned in a pretty traditional way. That role was tricky, um, because I think a lot of people wanted to play this like
yeah,
upper crust kind of hoity-toity, and it made him very unlikable in a way that I think if Ansel was too unlikable, you couldn't root for Arlo to want.
I mean, he did put his kid in the gutter.
Yeah, you
So
don't think you don't
we
think
still
too hard
love
about
him.
you don't think too hard about that. He's confused. Um, but yeah, basically, it felt like that character had to be likable in order for the movie to carry any kind of,
Interesting.
because you couldn't
Yeah.
root for Arlo to really love someone who was just like really unlikable. And I think the very first take, like when we did in the first screening, that was the case, and it was like, this Ansel is really hard to crack. And so we had kind of, the casting on that one took a while, and then Vincent came along, and he's got such a lovable, warm presence and voice, and I felt really bad, like going, by the way, you're playing a jerk, but we'll redeem you, and you'll be cool in the series, but you're gonna be a jerk, and it's like,
Yeah.
it is so not him because he's such a. I don't know if you've ever met the guy, but like, he is just a total like ray of sunshine, like as Michael J. Woodard is, um, and Mary too. They're just all like very bright, positive, warm people, and so it was really funny to be like, oh, okay, here you go. You're kind of a villain, but you're not like totally, but you are. But
Yeah.
his voice is insane. I mean, his voice is he's got all of that polish, that is comes with a theatrical, like musical theater background, that is really his voice is so present. And then Michael has all of this finesse and sort of, soulful kind of runs and all that stuff. And so I thought the two of them together, I thought their voices worked really well together.
Yeah, it really is amazing because that is the common thread is this real light of positivity that in a way was almost a blessing, the timing of the release, because so many people needed that at that time.
Yeah, I was very happy to be putting something positive into the world, as I always hope to. And I think like as I think about developing new projects, sometimes I find myself going into places where I'm like, that's a cool story, but like, where's the hope?
Yeah.
Where's the love? There's so much like, cool junk out there, but like, I think that's what makes Arlo really special, is that it is, it's complex, and there's some negativity. Doesn't say the world is perfect,
Hmm.
but Arlo is so full of joy and hope, and positivity, and the songs are bright, and it looks beautiful, and it's fun, and like the characters are celebrating each other and lifting each other up, and at the end of the day, like I think it leaves you with a very warm feeling. And so I was very happy that like during what has been such a trying couple of years, to kind of have something that we obviously started well before a pandemic and all that stuff, but like just to have something that really stood out as being a positive, you know, a big plus for people and for kids in particular. I think kids got really, a bad deal on on this
Yeah.
thing. Like it's like I think it's obviously it's coming back, and people are it's getting better, but I think about like the lack of freedom for children, and the idea that they have to put on masks to go to school and all of that stuff, like can't see their friends, and like they need positive as much positivity, as much fun and joy as they can get. So that
Yeah.
felt good. I was like, good, we're doing something cool here at a good time in the
Uh,
world to be doing that. Yeah.
And you have that like that crossover where there's like the shows your kids want to watch and the shows you want your kids to watch, and
Yeah.
rare like intersection where it's like, oh yes, like not only do I want you to watch this, I'll sit down and watch this with you. So I
Yeah,
think
that
it's
was the
cool.
hope. That was the hope. I mean, I think, I've and I think part of it kind of goes back to like just coming out of that like Shrek, you know, kind of feeling like I think Shrek has always been such a great marker in animation for yeah, it's not the most like um compelling, heartfelt, whatever, but it does do this thing where it really brings an adult vibe into
Mm,
children's, into a family setting where there's a lot of like, there's there's just a lot for a family, like for families of all, like for all ages to enjoy and to get. And I always hope that like we would do something like that with Arlo. It's obviously not Shrek, but that it would have that feeling that you could sit down on Saturday night and watch it with your kids and get something, as an adult and still enjoy it and be like, that's cool. The songs are good, and like, there's some funny stuff, and Jonathan Van Ness I love from Queer Eye, and you know what I mean, like all those things where you'd be like, this
yeah.
is
Like,
yeah.
wait, I recognize that voice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so fun. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, and I know we have a couple questions. Are you okay to
Okay.
take some
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
audience
Yeah.
questions?
Hmm.
Great. For anybody that's just tuning in that isn't familiar with this show, this is called Allison's Wonderland, and it is a weekly IGTV show and podcast where we interview people that work in animation and video games. So if there is a special guest that you would like to see, send me a message and I'll see what I can do. Okay, let's see. Well, Debbie has a question about whether we watch Soul with our kids, and whether the movie's kid friendly.
I did not. I want to, and I'm not sure. I'm on the fence about it. Like I really want to, and I think she would get it. Like we've had, a number of conversations about death
Mhm.
and things like that. Like I think we don't shy away from it. We talk about everything, but I don't know. Like I don't know. I don't because the last thing I want to do is like put some, like one of these days for sure. There's like talking about it and like having an awareness, and then there's that day where they're like, I can't sleep. Like,
Yeah,
uh, I don't know if I want to cross that bridge, but I think I
yeah,
want to. I think she would get a kick out of like the cat and all that stuff. But yeah.
yeah. For Bodhi, my son, we crossed that bridge sort of early on in the pandemic by something I had said, which I think, so he'd already crossed that bridge. And so we spent a lot of time talking about dying and death and what happens and different theories of what people happen. So it was good to watch Soul and be like, this is one artist's interpretation of that. So I think where he's at 5, if he was 3, it might be different because he hasn't necessarily thought too much about that and formulated his own ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did watch it together, and he likes spooky, scary. He's not like me as a kid that was like frightened by everything. But so he was on it. So I think it really depends on the kid, I guess, where they're at.
Yeah. Hi,
Um,
Steph Rizzo. Steph Rizzo is an amazing artist. For anyone who wants to go check out her stuff, go do it.
hey, Steph, thanks for tuning in. Okay, so Tristan asks if you wrote songs for the feature and the series at the same time, or did you wrap up the feature and then go into the series songs?
We wrapped the feature and started getting to the series. It was actually really hard. It was getting started on the series music was very difficult for me because I felt like not entirely tapped out, but it was happening. We wrote the first couple songs before the pandemic, but a lot of it happened during, and that was an experience. But
Yeah. Wow.
because we wrote literally over Zoom, like Alex would turn on his speakers and through his mixer, like we'd write over Zoom, and I'd be sending guitar things back and then vocal ideas back. There was a lot of mailing tracks to each other. We were writing; they kind of came after, but one of the things we did was the very first song for the series, which won't be the first song that you see when you watch it because we made it out of order. It's called Community Garden. We took a song that I loved that was meant to be the finale song. It was going to be Beautiful Together, is what that became. And it was a song that I just absolutely loved, and it just felt less like Beautiful Together has a very anthemic, kind of powerful, emotional, guttural feeling, where this was just like a really fun song. The other one was like much more like just a fun dance party song. And so, but I always loved that song. And then, and it was like, oh my God, like I felt like we'd done so, like climbed a mountain. And then someone went, no, and there's another mountain for you to climb right there. And it's going to happen every week. You have to write a song every week for the next, whatever it was, 20 weeks or whatever, I guess it was every other, like, so I was like, oh no, we're doomed. And so the first song we just took, we took a song that we had already written and rewrote the lyrics, and it's amazing. It's still one of the best songs on the series. It was like a good repurposing of a song that was really good anyways. So it wasn't like we put something junky in and just went like, this will work. Like it just happened to be, but it gave us a really good feeling of like, okay, we can do this. And also then just the groove got going for the series. We just kind of turned on that first
Yeah.
song, and yeah.
Yeah. You're building on that,
Yeah.
Okay. Whew, all right. Yeah, we can do this. Okay, yeah, we can do
Yeah.
this. All right.
Yeah, that was a challenging thing. The series, writing music for the series was very challenging, and I think we have a lot of really great stuff. But writing music for the movie, I was there, had written the movie and was writing the songs and was directing the movie, and I was so there all the time in my brain. And then the movie was still going on, and I was, overseeing the series, and then writing the songs just took, because sometimes a song happens in an hour, and sometimes a song takes days. And so it felt like a very crazy amount of pressure during a period where I was already under a lot of pressure. So yeah, so that was tricky. But in the end, I think the series songs in some ways are, if not as entertaining, I think a lot of people that I've talked to that are on the inside, Mary Lambert being one of them, Birdie, like the series songs more than the movie, which is crazy. So I'll let you guys make up your own decisions when you get to hear them. But yeah.
Will they release the series songs to for streaming as well as Spotify and
I
stuff?
hope so. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer off the top of my
Mhm.
head. Like we don't have. I'll say that it hasn't been like set in stone yet, but I hope so. I mean, I think it would be advantageous. I think what my hope was always that like people would what your family is doing, Allison, which is like you watch the movie and then you kind of live through the music and then you return to the movie again, and that's how we kind of operate in our house. We listen to a lot of music, mostly, we listen to a lot of Disney musicals and things, and it keeps it alive. So my hope was always that would do that. So I don't know that we've found. It's something I need to kind of now that we're kind of at that point, because I don't know when the series will release. We have a little time to figure it out, but yeah, that's the hope.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of fans covering the songs on YouTube and whatnot?
We see it from time to time. Tristan and Devi, who are both on here, have put forth amazing versions that have. I think when we did this CTN Expo, and Tristan covered. Oh gosh, not Watch the Hurt Away. What am I? It's Follow Me Home. It like I was actually at the beach when I heard it. It was so
Oh,
crazy, and was like crying with my wife. Like we were like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "Have you seen this?" Because Alex found it, or someone posted it, and and it was so weird because we were like at the beach listening to Tristan's version of Follow Me Home, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. People are actually like not only like listening to the music, but like turning it into something that they feel. That yeah,
Being inspired by it. You
yeah.
guys send me those covers. I would love to share them here if you have them available on Instagram. It's funny, I was just going to go to a question from Tristan. I'm assuming this is, oh, Tristan. Which song in Arlo was the most personal for you to write?
Um, oh, I I guess Beyond These Walls. Although Wash the Hurt Away, I think was probably the most me in a lot of ways. Like when I go into my own songwriting, like of my life and my past. But Beyond These Walls, I think, was one that was such a kind of special moment when it felt like a very, I wrote the first version of Beyond These Walls, I wrote on guitar, and recorded it, and I hadn't played in a long time, and I hadn't recorded anything in a long time. And so it was very hard for me to like feel comfortable recording that and then taking it to Alex and being like, I have a song. And I think I played it for him once, and I was like, I don't want to do it. And I was like playing, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, just I felt very like shy, and like I was like, I just
Yeah.
didn't have the confidence because it's been so long. It like it'd been almost 10 years since I had really like written and played a song.
Yeah.
And then we made that version together, and then we kind of produced it like one more time. We did like usually we'll do like a demo, and then we kind of done like another level of production. And then I was like, that's not it. And Alex, I think, felt the same. He was like, oh, I was hoping you were going to say that. And I was like, yeah. But I was like, the words are good, but the song is not right. And then we went back in like the next day and just started doing the chord. He started playing the chords of what we have now, and it all came together. And then, so that one was like a very magical sort of experience, and kind of, I felt like I shed a lot of like, you know, being afraid of writing songs again and all that stuff. Like it, so while and lyrically, I'm just very proud of that one. And then Wash the Hurt Away, I'm exact like very proud of the lyrics there too. I think that's one that I'm very happy we could get that into an animated family film, because you don't get to see a lot of songs that go that, you know,
Deep.
deep and dark, and that, and I don't know if I can say it. Like I've talked with Netflix a little bit about like sort of you know, what's popping, what's working, and Wash the Hurt Away is like a song that we get a lot of feedback about. Like it's a very like it shows up. Like that song is one, you know, Beyond These Walls and Follow Me Home we came out with as like the two kind of singles, but Wash the Hurt Away is one that really has connected with people on another level that they're kind of aware of. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. All right. One last question, and then we will wrap it up. I mean, there's so many good questions. I'm so sorry, Teeny Toons, we're not going to be able to get this question, which is so good.
You
But
guys can always, you know, shoot me DM me. I'll get back to you at some point. I'll try to.
Rickety Biscuit, great, great username, asks, were Ansel's bird traits designed after a specific kind of bird? Because he reminds me of an egret.
Um, no, we had, so David D. Pasquale, who was our character designer, was tasked with just like different versions of the bird features on Ansel, and that's where we ended up. I think, I mean, he feels kind of hawkish to me. We had gone pretty far with it. There's somewhere you're like, okay, well, he's clearly a bird. Um, and so, yeah, I don't think I mean, David might know. David might have like specific on that particular reference, or that particular design that we chose, whether he was referencing certain things, but like, you know, we wanted to keep his legs really skinny and like give him that kind of bird, like he's got that like big chest, kind of bird chest, and tails. He had tails, and I think we got rid of it on his like tuxedo at some point. Maybe he has it in the finale, but yeah.
On the nose.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, okay, maybe we can just, do you have time for one
One
more?
more.
Okay,
One
one
more.
more, because I think this is just I'm really curious about this as well. What it's been like
Hey,
transitioning.
Carl. Sorry, it's my
Hey,
cousin.
Carl. It's always funny when you see a familiar face.
Yeah.
Transitioning from the movie's production to the show's production. And what are the differences between the production? Like, is the animation, is it exactly the same? Is it produced by the same?
Produced by Titmouse. We did things a little bit differently for the show, just because of the needs of like having to turn over episodes, you know, a lot faster.
Yeah, yeah.
We had whatever, I don't know what the amount of minutes is, but almost like twice the amount of time of the movie, or more, and probably, similar stretch of production runway. So what we did for the series was we took all of the designs and it's in Flash or Adobe Animate, and we like did crazy turns, like so crazy. Like I think they did like, like way more than, just your 5 or 7 or 9 or whatever. Like we did a lot of in-betweenings, and then we did every mouth chart possible. We did every expression. Like, so we over produced the character poses. So we had like a lot of information for every character of the mains of Arlo, Birdie, for Alicia, Tony, Aaliyah, and Marcellus. And then and they worked off of that. So the animators had a lot more like to pull from, where in the movie we were actually pretty much hand drawn. So even though we had built like rigs that they could pull into their scenes, the rigs were meant to be more like, this is your body, like this is, so you have exactly, the reference of like all the proportions, but not to be used as like puppet the mouth kind of thing. So so the series, in some ways, like the characters look beautiful and perfect all the time, and you don't get all the like, you get like pushed expressions like you would expect in a series, like board driven series. You get like we definitely break the model, but most of the time the characters look pretty darn perfect. Where in the movie you can tell like shot to shot if the animator changed or so yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. I feel like I learned quite a bit tonight.
There you go.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I
Yeah.
know everybody is very grateful, and I'm very grateful as well. So how do you prefer that people stay in touch with you? Just following you on Instagram, and you're on Twitter as well?
Yeah, not really Twitter. Honestly,
Okay.
Instagram is about the only thing I do these days, and over the last couple weeks I've been slow pushing it even further out. But like, yeah, I think the more I get into my life, the more I'm like trying to avoid like very like, obviously if you have questions like Instagram, but I feel like all these other outlets are just like crazy to keep up with. I can't,
It's 100%. Yeah. Yeah. That was one
Yeah.
of the questions we didn't get to, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to manage when you're trying to actually create the work to then have to be on social talking about the work all the time. So
Yeah. Plus,
I
I like
get,
Instagram because you get all the art. Like, I like looking at people's art more than
yeah,
anything. You know what I mean? Like, no offense to people's opinions. I love your opinions, but I love Instagram because mostly it's like just people like posting their coolest stuff and getting to, that's where I found a lot of artists, a lot of people that I worked with on this project. Steph Rizzo, who was on earlier, like, I put up a post one day like, hey, I need board artists. And then Steph had like, well, my friend Alicia Gibson lives up in the Bay Area or whatever, like, or up in Northern California. And I was like, well, Steph, like, will you do some character designs? And so like, we just, it was purely Instagram to get to, yeah. So I find Instagram to be the most useful for me.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and keep us posted about the show. I can't wait to share when it's coming to air.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure I don't know when the announcement will happen, but I have to imagine people will know in the next couple month or two or whatever. It's got to get announced sometime.
I'm sure Let's Talk Cartoons will hear it first.
Yeah.
Maybe even before you.
I'll send, I like to send Debbie messages like,
Yeah.
hey, it's like we're like in a parking lot somewhere, like something's about to drop today. Keep your eyes on this account at 2:30.
That's
All
awesome.
right. Well,
Well,
thank
thank you
you.
so much.
All right.
Have
Catch
a
you later.
great night.
Bye
Okay,
bye.
thanks, guys. See you next week.